Hello and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. Now, we've got a first for this season. We've got a fan preview of Norwich City game. We've got a Blackburn Rovers fan to preview the upcoming Norwich City versus Blackburn game at Carrow Road at the weekend. It is Mark Hitchen from the Blackburn End podcast. Mark, thank you for joining me.
No, absolutely, absolutely. It's Blackburn End podcast only just started, so get liking and subscribing, anyone, please. Even if you're a Norwich fan, it'll always help the algorithm. We were on Rovers chat, which has been incredibly successful, but we've moved across now, rebranded, and all ready for the new season. But thanks for having us.
So I guess the first place to start actually is we've just rebranded ourselves. We relaunched a YouTube channel in the summer. You said that you've only just got going. What was the reason for you to start the Blackburn End?
Um, I mean, Dan, who started Rovers Chat, I think it was around 7 years ago, invited myself and Mike, who does the pod with me, on about a year ago. We'd done some stuff during COVID on and off, but properly a year ago we started the podcast. And we just love talking rubbish about Rovers and football in general. So we did that over the season, and unfortunately Dan's not been able to commit to taking that forward. It was always his baby, so we've just rebranded it. We've not fallen out or anything like that. Dan's still hopefully going to come back on when time allows him to. But yeah, so we just sort of sat and debated it over the summer and thought, you know what? We enjoy talking rubbish, even if no one else listens to it. So we'll crack on. Yeah. And it's great to talk to other fans and get an insight as well. So
Nice. So yeah, even if you're not a Blackburn fan, make sure you sub to the Blackburn End podcast.
yeah, thank you.
Getting into it, obviously two teams with differing fortunes on the pitch on the opening day of the season. It was a 4-2 victory for Blackburn
It
Rovers
was.
against newly promoted Derby. The same can't be said for Norwich. It was a abysmal 2-0 defeat away at newly promoted Oxford. A lot of people this season are predicting Norwich to finish at a different end of the table to Blackburn.
Mm.
We've got a prediction, 1 to 24 prediction video on the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. I didn't predict Norwich to finish in the top six, but I may have predicted Blackburn to get relegated. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, based on the opening day, what are your thoughts surrounding Blackburn, and were they really that good, or were Derby that bad?
Derby were poor. Derby, they need to sort themselves out, otherwise they're going to have a very tough season. I think people are basing the prediction of Rovers going down on last season and the likelihood that they're going to lose Sammy Smodics and probably not much else. I point back to the previous two seasons. We were seventh and eighth and in and around the playoffs. Never quite getting in there, but in and around. Johnny Eustace came in with a remit of just keeping us up, really. And then he seems to have imparted his style. Part of the problem we've got at the moment is our owners, who have been a bit of a problem for the last 14 years, really, are not able to remit funds as they would quite like. They can do, but it costs them double, is the easiest way of putting it. So if they put 10 million into the club, they put 10 million to the Indian government, it would seem at the moment. So they've kind of funded the club through sales, which if you don't reinvest in your football team, and we've probably got worse over the last 4 transfer windows each time, then that's only going to end up one way. So there is merit to your prediction. However, I think we've recruited late, but we've recruited, it looks okay at the moment. They're probably gambles. We've got 3 experienced players, which we were lacking. We've brought in Danny Barth, we've brought in Andy Vyman, and we have brought in Carl McFadden again. We lacked experience massively last year. And then we've gambled really up front. We've got Maktar Gueye, who's a 6'5" Senegalese striker who looks like he can hold a ball up, which is something that we'd forgotten strikers did. But he can also run the channels. He's going to be one of them that you never quite know what you're going to get. Apparently, he's unstoppable in the air, but finishing wise at the ball at his feet, I'm not so sure. But he's not really had a pre-season, but he did okay. We got 60 minutes out of him on Friday, and he looked decent. It looked a promising start. And then we've signed Yuki Ohashi, who's halfway through his J League season. He scored 11 goals in 22 in the J League. He's come over to England and scored 1 in 30 minutes. So a great start. So we'll take that so far. But we are light. We are very light. Fortunately we've got a couple of injuries to young lads, Harry Leonard and Zach Gilson, and who've been in and around the first team squad. But other than that, we've got everybody fit. Not fully fit. They've not all had perfect pre-seasons. But that's probably why our bench looked quite strong on Friday. We are very thin in areas. So we've got Ainsley Pears as the only fit first team keeper. Some would say not even a first team keeper. And we are lacking in key positions. I think we're lacking 4 players that you would like to start or certainly be bringing off the bench, which is a lot, really.
Yeah, so I think the main talking point surrounding Blackburn all summer has been Sammy Szmodics. A fantastic season for Blackburn last season, despite the fact that you struggled and finished in the bottom half of the table. Do you expect Szmodics to stay? Obviously, he came off the bench to score against Derby, and there's been talk all summer about him going to a certain club down the road. I hope he doesn't go there. But if he does, it would be a Premier League move. So I guess it'd be good for him. But do you think he'll go? And more importantly, where do you think he'll go?
I do think he will go. I think, that there's rumours that they're about £500,000 apart in their valuation of guaranteed up front. And it's that Rovers want £9 million guaranteed. I don't think that's that excessive. He's 28, he's nearly 29. You can argue, oh, well, he's only just hit 30, numbers wise. He's never done it before. But Rovers played him in a slightly different role to what he's played before. He's become a better player as well. Finishing wise, he is fantastic. Do I think he would get 33 league goals if he stayed with us this season? No. I think you get 15, though, guaranteed minimum. Premier League wise, could he do it? If he got the chances, he would score. It's as simple as that with him, really. He's not an out-and-out forward, but he drops in the pockets. His movement's clever. In terms of all-round footballing ability, he's there's things to improve on in Sammy Szmodics' game, but he does what's probably the most difficult thing to do really, really well. So I am surprised more teams haven't been linked. Galatasaray have been linked, but I think they've taken Sara off yourselves. And then there's only really been Ipswich has been seriously linked. I would have thought personally somebody like Leeds or somebody who was looking to guarantee goals in the Championship would have come in for him, because he pretty much does that. You'll get 15 goals from him minimum. 30 goals, I'm not so sure. It's not like when we had Jordan Rhodes where that was almost 25 plus a season. But then again, he's played, was it 20 minutes, half an hour on Friday, and he bagged already and got an assist. So it's not a bad start.
Yeah, not a bad start indeed. Another transfer that caught my eye this summer is Britton Diaz. He's got a permanent move to the Premier League this summer with Southampton. Obviously, he was on loan at Sheffield United for their disastrous campaign last season, for the back end of that season. So you mentioned there about Szmodics potentially going. You've got 2 players there who have performed brilliantly in a Blackburn Rovers shirt and who'll probably depart. How often do Blackburn produce players like this, who are almost come to Blackburn, maybe their fortunes aren't great and they flourish at Ewood Park and almost Premier League ready by the time they leave? How often does that happen?
I mean, it's happened often recently. We had we had Jordan Rhodes, and then Rhodes left, and we got Danny Graham, who got 20 goals. Then after Graham, Bradley Dack did it, and this is all continuing. Dack got injured, and Adam Armstrong did it. Armstrong left, Diaz did it, Diaz left, and then it's Szmodics has picked up that mantle, really. So they do seem to have a very good habit of doing that. It's not always plain sailing. We spent £5 million on Sam Gallagher, and he scored 3 league goals last season. There are misses within that, don't get me wrong. I think what Rovers do really well, though, is they have a clear pathway for the youth team to the first team. What Rovers sort of have a mantra of is that they're not, obviously it's quite condensed in the Northwest in terms of football. If you're a footballer, are you going to choose literally on a football basis Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, Blackburn, Man City? You're not going to choose Blackburn. But what Rovers do offer is a clear pathway to the first team. They will give you a chance. They've got a clear record of doing that. And their sort of selling point is that if you hit 100 games, league games as a professional footballer in Premier League or Championship, I think the stats of you dropping off the cliff and not being a professional footballer are massive. So Rovers sort of say, well, this is your best chance to get into 100 league games. So if you want to be a professional footballer, this is your best chance. And they do it. We've got Adam Wharton, the most recent obvious one. But our match day squad has had a U team player in for a number. I think it's a crazy stat that's out there, something like 60 years. But they play and they contribute really well. So our academy is amazing, and that's one big legacy of Jack Walker that we really do have to thank. People think Jack Walker came in and bought us the league, and then that was it. It's not quite the case. I think if you look at the seasons that Rovers won the league, Liverpool outspent us, Manchester United outspent us. But what he did do was build foundations. He built us a ground and he built us an academy, and that academy is still going strong.
Yeah, and like you said, it's sort of similar to Norwich. Ever since I've been a Norwich City fan, we've always had really good attacking midfielders, whether that's Wes Hoolahan, James Maddison,
Yeah.
even Alex Pritchard to a certain extent. But then Wendia and Gabriel Sara, it just seems like whenever we inevitably come to sell these players, we somehow find a way to replace them and replace them with good quality. So yeah, maybe Norwich and Blackburn are alike in that stance. But something else I want to touch on is something you mentioned in your first point about the owners. I can remember in the when Blackburn were last in the Premier League, and the uproar then about the Venkies and how they're running Blackburn Rovers Football Club. We saw yesterday that Delia Smith is going to be reducing her shares in Norwich City to 10%. It does definitely feel like the end of an era. So probably on hindsight, I think she's run the club immaculately. How certain clubs are run today in English football. What do you think of the Venkies? It's not like they've just come in. Like I mentioned, they were there in the Premier League days and causing controversy then. So, what are your overall thoughts on the Venkies and the way they're running Blackburn Rovers Football Club?
I don't think any supporter will really forgive them for what they did. I mean, we were one of the model Premier League clubs. We were, we're a town club, and we were more than holding our own in the Premier League. Yes, we were still selling David Bentley for 17 million, but that was being reinvested, not all of it, but reinvested in the squad. Well, and that's a model that most clubs have to run by, really, is you sell quite high and then you reinvest well and you become a better team. Venky's came in naively, I think. Long story short, they were looking to invest in English football as a way of sponsoring something, and an agent who was brokering the deal to sell the club and brokering that deal suggested, well, why don't you buy Blackburn and your name will just be out there. You won't be left to put any money in. We can run the club for you. And there was a deal in place that was set up then for Venky's not to even run the club. The directors weren't running the club, and I think it was Carrow Road allegedly that's out there, whereby they were effectively in day-to-day control of the club, the transfers, and they have very close links to an agency. And that was the fans' point was, we bought Ruben Rashina, decent footballer, from Barcelona B for about £300,000. And I think that we paid the agent 1.8 million. So all the uproar from fans was about things like that. And the most high-profile example of that was, at the time, we had Sam Allardyce as manager, and Rovers fans were divided on Sam Allardyce. Don't get me wrong. He had an assistant manager, and then he had a first-team coach. The manager went, the assistant manager went, and the first team coach got appointed. And the first team coach just so happened to be working with the same agency who was running the club. And the first team coach was Steve Keane. He'd never managed a club in his life. He managed something like 4 games as a caretaker. Fine. Then they gave him a contract till the end of the season. About 2 more games. We hadn't won any of these, bear in mind. They gave him a 3-year deal. Then they gave him a new improved deal. It was just a shambles. And we were trying to just get this known that this is not about us just losing games. This is about, it's wrong. Sir Alex Ferguson came out at the time and said, he was one of the few to come out and say, what's going on at that football club is not right. They've got an agent running the football club. It was all denied, and you know, it was the agent Jerome Hansen went on Sky Sports and did a piece how the fans were a disgrace, and how the fact that his son had joined the football club despite never playing a professional game was just because he was a great youth prospect, and how the fans were hounding him, and how he's sleeping at the training ground, and he was taking no money for all of this. And Venky's were kind of in the background of this. I think as what seems to have transpired, you know, and it's all come out in the wash, is that they've been taken for a bit of a ride, and it's cost them circa £200 million because they're footing the bill every year. What they haven't done is run off into the sunset. Some fans would very much like them to do that. There is a fear of, well, at least they're paying the bills. But then lastly, over the last 18 months, what's happened is they've had a disagreement, shall we say, with the Indian government. And at one stage, there was a stop last summer on any funds coming over. And then they had to go to court to get funds released because otherwise we couldn't pay the bills. And then this summer, it would seem that there's still a court case ongoing. They can send funds over, but whatever they send over, they have to transfer the same money to the government, I think it is. I might be slightly out with that, but that's roughly what it is. So it's costing them £22 million to run the football club. It will cost them £44 million at the moment. So what they've kind of done is use money from Adam Wharton's sale, from Thomas Kaminski's sale, from the others. So we've got steadily worse now over the 4 transfer windows that this has been going on. So fans see very little upside, which is where I'm at with them. You know, if they're paying the bills and we are progressing as a football club, I get FFP restrictions and things, so we can't just go and spend money anyway. I kind of can tolerate them when they're not then putting any money into the club. They're not taking it out, but when they're not putting any in, I see very little upside to them. You know, I could run Blackburn Rovers, take the money from transfers and use that to fund, you know, it's so there's no upsides to them right now. And fans are not delighted with them, shall we say.
Yeah, I think it's always going to be a difficult subject in terms of running a football club, especially two clubs as historic as Blackburn and Norwich. But yeah, based on yesterday's news in terms of Delia Smith and Michael Wynne-Jones, I felt like I had to ask because Blackburn have like been in the news before because of how to run a club, and whilst I think it's a good thing and necessary for the progression of Norwich City Football Club, I also potentially look at clubs like Blackburn, but even worse, like clubs like Reading or Wigan, and
Absolutely.
and do think Norwich have had it lucky that someone like Delia Smith has run the club. But anyway,
Yeah.
on to Saturday's game. Um, what are you thinking heading into the game? As I said in my intro, obviously two very conflicting results for both of our sides. So what do you predict will unfold at Carrow Road?
Yeah, I think Rovers have 1 or 2 players. Well, they didn't sign anybody all summer, and then they signed 5 in about 24 hours. And that was too late. They've not had a pre-season, so we've signed Maktar Gueye, who's a Senegalese footballer from Belgium. He's 6'5". He looks a real handful, but he could only manage 60 minutes. I mean, after half time, he was absolutely knackered. We signed Yuki Ohashi from the J League. But these are gambles. I mean, he's in the middle of his season, so that's a bonus. But these are gambles. But we've signed some experience. We've signed Cal McFadden back on a short-term deal to the end of the season, Danny Bath on an end-of-the-season deal, and Andy Vyman. And that's quite crucial because we had no experience at all. Lewis Travis has come back into the club, but we are short. Many supporters, myself included, well, we definitely need a goalkeeper because we've only one full-time professional that's played any minutes in terms of league football. In Ainsley Pears, but I think he cost us many points last season. I'd like to see us improve in that area. We've no cover in the fullbacks. John Eustace has been quite open about that. We need to improve in midfield, particularly if Sammy Smodic goes. We need a number 10 replacement, and then we're lacking pace. So if teams sit in a low block against Blackburn, we really struggle because it gets quite congested. But equally, if teams play on the halfway line, we haven't that much threat in behind. Smodics is the only one, really. So we're lacking that option as well. What we have given ourselves is an option that we were so easy to play against from set pieces last year. It was actually comical at times for everybody else. We've added some height this season, and we've added a bit of threat in that area. So that hopefully is. We conceded twice on Friday, but Derby I think are a bit of an exception to the rule. I think that's their niche. So hopefully we've improved in that area. But I think John Eustace has made us really hard to beat. It's not the prettiest last season, but I'm kind of judging him from now onwards, because last season he came in to do a job and style of football was not a priority. And he had something like 9 games in 23 days. So you're not going to implement any style of football at that point. And what he did do was stop us conceding goals for fun. This season, we need to be a bit more expansive. You couldn't watch that all season. But I don't envisage, I know it's 4-2 at weekend, but I don't envisage lots of goals in Rovers games, if I'm being honest. I think he will, certainly away from home, he will adopt the similar approach to what he did last season, which is do not lose. And he'll probably try and frustrate teams. He did it at Leeds. I expect he'll probably do the same. That doesn't mean we'll sit back on the edge of our box, but I do think we won't be taking unnecessary risks against yourselves. And then in the likes of Sammy Smodics, if he's still here, we have got goals in the team. So it's that kind of probably hoping for a half a chance more than anything.
Yeah, and as I alluded to when I did my preview on the Blackburn end, Blackburn have actually won their last three
Yeah.
on their last 3 visits to Carrow Road, one in the FA Cup and twice in the league. And obviously, famously, the last time they won in the league was probably the turning point of our season last season. And yeah, that's still to date is our last competitive defeat at Carrow Road, which isn't too bad. But yeah, if I said to you now that Blackburn they're going to Carrow Road, are you confident of getting the victory? Is it a place where you look at and go, yeah, like we've got this, or is there a bit of apprehension whenever Blackburn do end up playing Norwich?
Yeah, I mean, particularly at home, it seems like the pair of us can't win a home game against each other. Yeah, at home, you seem to absolutely wipe the floor with us all the time. Norwich are a good team. I think, in the Championship, if you go away to a good team, you'll take a draw. We do have a good record, which does it count? Does it count for something? Possibly, if some of the players, have got happy memories of going there and they're confident, maybe it does. I've never been to Carrow Road before, and I'm going on Saturday, so that will end that for you. Don't worry. So yeah, from that aspect, I'd take a draw, but it's one of them from our perspective, I think.
And if I had to push you on a scoreline, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't think Smodics will feature. If I'm being honest, I think that's going to rumble on. I think that will come to a conclusion very soon. They're talking about £500,000. If you're a Premier League club and you really want a player, surely you find £500,000. With Smodics, I'd have said 2-2. I can't predict us to lose, can I? I'm going to go 2-2.
So yeah, you had it there first. If it's a 2-2 victory, then clearly Mark has a crystal ball that we need to borrow as Norwich fans. But yeah, Mark, thank you for joining me. Where can people go to keep up to date with you and the Blackburn End podcast?
Yeah, so it was formerly Rovers Chat, and the socials are still running for that. And Dan's trying to redirect everything. But yeah, it's at Blackburn End Pod on pretty much all the socials, at Blackburn End Pod, YouTube. We're on all platforms, some good ones, some rubbish ones. But yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere. We try and get everywhere.
Perfect. So yeah, I will put a link to those in the description. But yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, on the ball City, and hope we win on Saturday.